Welcome to the Backpack Podcast, where we unpack your stories so others can embrace it. Each week, you can expect captivating stories, tips, and insights to help you grow and develop your business. Now, let's unpack that. Thank you all for joining us on the Backpack Podcast, where we unpack your story so others can embrace it. I am honored to have the one and only Elder, I know him as Elder, David Goodin. David Goodin.
Well, thank God there's only one of me. Okay?
There's only one of you. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, man, my pleasure. We've been trying to do this for years.
For years. And finally we get an opportunity for everybody to hear what I get an opportunity to hear.
Okay,
Your story.
Not everything, all right?
Not everything. No, we'll
right,
keep it
right.
PG. Before we get started, I would like for you to kind of tell everybody about who you are, where you come from. I know there's plenty to unpack, but it's kind of, I know you have a book.
I do.
And what's that called?
It's called Wisdom from the Father You May Have Never Had.
My gosh.
But a lot of people that look at the book, they think that it's for people who grew up without their father.
Okay.
When in reality it's not. It's actually a book for anyone. It's just, it's a book on relationships.
Okay.
And it has about over 100 real life individual situations that we give insight and wisdom on.
Wow. Okay. Okay. There's a story behind that book. We won't go there, but then you have a counseling service that you provide. And what's that called?
It's called A Goodin Family Affair.
Okay. And then you do that with your wife.
We do. And we kind of target and specialize with counseling blended and step families.
Okay, so that's what we want to unpack. We want to talk about that story. But go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself, and tell the audience about where you come from, how you got into what you're doing right now.
Okay, how far back you want me to go?
Oh gosh,
since you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just do what you want to do. Do what's on your heart.
Do what I want to do.
Do
okay. All right. I've had an incredible life.
Yes.
Just an incredible life, and I guess I actually could have been one of those, you know how you've heard the phrase, the least likely to succeed in anything?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that was stamped on my head, you know, when I came out the womb, okay? Yeah. But actually, you know, when I was born, it wasn't the best situation.
Okay.
You know, and what ended up happening is that I actually was born in Xenia, Ohio, which is 17 miles east of Dayton.
Okay.
Okay. Central State Wilberforce University.
Okay.
Yeah. And I found out that my father wasn't around when I was born. I was in Xenia for 9 years. And can't remember one time he ever came and picked me up, even though he could have drove to my grandmother's house in maybe 5 minutes.
Wow.
And I was trying to get a passport a few years ago. Maybe about 10 years ago. And one of the things I found out through the census reports, you know, that they pull up and all that, is that my name was changed 3 times before I was 9.
What?
Yeah. When I was born, my name was David Anderson. Isn't that something?
Ain't that
something? We might be related.
I didn't even know that.
Okay.
I didn't hear this story. Really?
It was David Anderson.
Okay.
But my mother's name was Mamie Anderson. All right.
Okay.
Then my mother's first husband, his name was William Thompson. And then on the census report that they had there, they had me down as David Thompson, which he was a man that always treated me like I was his. And some kind of way it got turned back around to David Goodin, who was my real father. But then we left there at 9. When I was 9 years old, moved to a place called Elyria, Ohio, which is 27 miles west of Cleveland.
Okay.
And that's basically where I grew up. And me and my mom had, two brothers, 2 sisters, moved around quite a bit, and went to school. For some reason, school wasn't clicking with me. And so I ended up flunking 9th grade twice.
Oh, wow.
You know, teacher would have me, you know how in school they would have you go up there and figure out a problem on the board in front of everybody.
Right.
I'd go up there and write the answer. And teacher said, no, David, we're not going to go with that. We want to see you have to show us how you go about getting the answer. And I'm saying to myself, ain't that the answer? You know, I'm saying,
What we got to do all that for?
you know, why we got to do all that?
Right.
And I gave it, you know. So I wasn't too good with that. It wasn't because I was stupid. I just couldn't comprehend
Gotcha.
because my mind was going, you know, all over the place.
Wow.
And so I just decided that I was caddying at that time, carrying golf clubs at a golf course. And so, shoot, I can make $40 a week. I don't need to go to school. So I dropped out of school in the 9th grade.
Really?
Yeah. And then I decided I was going to be a virgin. You know, I was going to save myself and so on and so forth. And so I was a virgin until I was 18, almost 19.
Okay.
And the first girl I had sex with, she got pregnant. Okay.
What odds?
And then the next girl that I had sex with, she got pregnant.
Oh gosh.
And I said, wow, you know, it's kind of interesting.
Right.
And I'm just 19.
Wow.
Okay, just 19. And so then I ended up getting married. I was married for 5 years. Ended up getting divorced. At that time, I was a concert promoter. I started managing a band that my brother was in. They used to sound like Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Okay.
And they actually represented the state of Ohio at the Smithsonian Institute for soul music when Ohio was the featured state that year. So they were good. And so then I started booking groups like the Ohio Players, the Barcades, Funkadelics. I had a concert in Dayton with the Funkadelics, and they wanted this 15-year-old guitar player to be on there with them. And so I didn't have a problem with it at all. And but that 15-year-old guitar player turned out to be Roger Troutman.
What?
Yeah, who was a bad boy, even at 15.
You was around all this.
Oh yeah. I had contracts on Chaka Khan. I had the first contract this side of the Mississippi on Frankie Beverly and Mays. But I had them at such a good price, they came back to negotiate.
Wait a minute. Let me stop.
Yeah, what?
We're unpacking some stuff here. Okay. You dropped out in 9th grade.
Yeah.
And then you start negotiating contracts.
Well,
you were negotiating contracts?
Well, a few years later, just
a few years later. But my point is,
yeah.
You know, you get business owners who are thinking, or people who think, you know, I've got to have this education, and not to say that you not supposed to finish school, but you dropped out, and you were able to navigate your way in business at such a young age. You were negotiating major contracts for entertainers.
Yeah, and actually, the agency, which was William Morrison in California.
I'm familiar with William
Yeah,
Morrison.
they were the largest one in the country at that time.
Right.
Yeah, but I could hear a song, and I could hear a song on the radio and know where it would be, maybe 4 to 5 weeks from then. So I would book them then.
Wow.
And then when they done really hit it, I've got them at a deal. One time I had Chaka Khan and Rufus and Chaka Khan, when they had just put out Tell Me Something Good. I had them 2 nights for $500 a night.
Stop it.
$500 at my hometown in Elyria, and I had a disc jockey in Columbus, Ohio, that was going to take them on the Saturday. But what happened is something happened where I decided I wasn't going to have them in my hometown. Don't know what it was. And I asked the DJ if he could take them for both days, and he gladly did. And so what I did, which is another little side link, I said, God must not have wanted that David Goodin, who was just getting into drugs and selling drugs, to meet a 19-year-old Chaka Khan.
Oh, wow.
So that wouldn't have been good at that time.
Wow.
You know, it wouldn't, because most of the groups are looking for drugs.
Right.
You know, at that time.
Okay, that's another story that we could possibly. That's another story we could go down that rabbit. We got stories. So, let's go in this area here, because I know your focus right now is your Goodin family affair.
It is.
And your blended families.
It is.
Tell me that journey. Let's unpack that journey. How and why? I remember you telling me one time, you know, someone asked you if you're qualified to do this, you know.
Yeah, they did. Somebody asked me, did I feel that I was qualified to talk about family and blended and step families? And why did I think I was qualified to do it? And I said, because I'm not.
Mm.
And I'm not. Because the reason I say that, I've done everything wrong.
Wow.
Everything wrong. It's rare that I have somebody in front of me that I'm counseling or I'm talking to, that needed forgiveness more than I did.
Wow.
Yeah. So what I try to do is when I look at my life, I try to learn from it. And I look at all the mistakes that I made. I even look back even now, the past relationships. And I was just so naive, and I didn't really appreciate relationships back then, because you're young, you're going through. I grew up in the what you call the shaft, the Mac, the Superfly, all of that. The what was the one that tripped out everything was Al Pacino.
Oh, the Scarface.
Scarface.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That era right there is what did so much damage, which made so many men, all of us, just so irresponsibility, because we were caught up in an era, of there was a song out by the Crusaders and Randy Crawford. It was called Street Life, and basically what that did, it showed, and you see a lot of people do it today, for a night. If you got enough to get a couple drinks or something like that, you can appear to people to be whatever you want to be for a night. And if you keep doing that, like the song says, one of these days you're going to get old, and you're going to feel cold, because you haven't prepared for your future. You just waste your life away.
People need to hear that.
Yeah.
People need to hear that.
Yeah.
So tell me this, okay? So you're not qualified. You've done everything wrong. And because you're so open and vulnerable with that, it makes someone who's hearing that, judge themselves. I look at my life. When we talk always, you have to be able to judge yourself talking to you, because you're like, man, he's laid it all on the line. Like, if you said...
Since I don't judge anybody. I can't judge.
Right.
But usually when I tell people my story, they say, oh God, I can tell this dude anything.
Right.
Because he can't judge.
Right.
So it's, but I love doing it. I love people. I love encouraging people. And I always ask God to give me wisdom before I'm counseling, before I'm advising, because I'm not that smart, as you know. I had problems in high school. Okay?
But you were negotiating contracts.
Yeah, I was negotiating contracts.
So I know I had an opportunity to record a video of you and your son a while back, Cage. And what an amazing revelation in that video between you and him. Unpack that story for us. Talk about that video, because I think that ties greatly into your ability to do what you do in Goodin Family Affair, and why you are qualified to talk to men, to women, to children about that whole concept of blended families and broken families and all that. That video, people need it. If you haven't seen it, Lit TV, it's on YouTube. That video was absolutely, I've never seen anything like it. But can you unpack that story for me?
And it was totally unrehearsed.
It was.
We didn't know how it was going to come out.
Oh, it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was. Well, one of the things I realized, because I ended up having 6 kids by 4 different women, and then my wife had 2 by 2 different guys, and we adopted a niece. And then
blended.
we had to deal with 7 outside parents. And keep in mind, when you're talking about blended families, you're not just dealing with parents, you're dealing with boyfriend, girlfriends too, because they have an opinion, somewhere back there. So what happened is that while I was going through my life, I ended up in drugs, ended up a drug addict, a drug dealer. And what's happening while I'm doing all of that, my family is paying the price of neglect with me. I'm not growing as a man. I always worked. Never had a problem, working.
Right.
Sometimes I do more drugs in the bathroom while I was working than what I was going to make that week.
Wow.
All right, just to look legit. Okay.
Wow.
So a lot of people was doing that back then, but when I came to Atlanta, and I met my wife Cynthia, who told me that if we were going to date, I had to go to church. And I told her I don't do church, and she said, "Why?" I said, "Because when I was doing my concerts after hours, there was church people that was coming looking at the same women I was looking at, asking me when I was going." Wow. And I would say to myself, and I tell them, I said, "Well, you know what? I'm not going to go this Sunday." And they say, "Okay, maybe one Sunday," because I'm actually saying to myself, I don't want to go because I don't want to be like you. Because see, people that don't go to church know what church people should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing.
Right.
Even if they don't know the scripture, to do it. So I ended up going anyway. All right, because I would tell my daughters, Beyonce didn't have nothing on your mom when she was 23 years old. Nothing at all, bro. Now I showed them pictures to back it up.
Right.
And they said, oh, I see. Yeah, but I did. And, but one thing about it, when I went to church with her, I said, I remember the first time I went. We went to a church, and we were sitting in the balcony. I'm in a 3-piece suit. And I see Cynthia put $50 in the offering plate. Now, this back in 1984. And I look at her and put that $50 bill in the offering plate. And I said, my God, this woman don't even know what to do with her money. And I said, giving all our money to this preacher. Now when the little old ladies that come around with the little silver plates for the change.
Right.
Now, of course, I get them some. Okay,
Right.
I put some change in
put
there
some change
for the little ladies, yeah. And I said, she don't know what to do with her money. And then I figured it out. I knew how to get there. Right after they done took up some tithes. All right, I had to time what time I was going to get there.
Oh.
Okay.
Right, when what time
when I go, I made sure I was late,
right.
Coming in there. And but then they had this building fund going on at the end of the service.
Right.
That everybody in the church got down, come out the balcony, went down the street, down the aisle, and put your offering in there for the building fund. We go down the steps, go right out the door. Okay. Right out the door. Wow. I said, no, we ain't doing this here. And I'm saying this woman need me because she don't even know what to do with her money.
Wow.
All right, but she got the car. I don't. She got the job. I don't.
Oh, gosh.
She going to school, okay? She got the apartment. I don't.
Oh, wow.
Right, but I'm telling her, I'm thinking she don't know what to do with her money because she giving it to this church.
Wow. Ain't that something?
Yeah. But I got saved. One night I went, Demond Wilson, Lamont from Sanford and Son was preaching.
What?
I thought that he was just going to come in, tell some jokes or something, and say I gave my life to the Lord. I didn't know this dude was the real deal.
Wow.
And when he came through, brother, there were so many people went to the altar that they were lining up the aisles and in the front. I looked at how the pastors were looking at the people, talking about, y'all supposed to have been saved.
Yeah, supposed to have been saved.
Yeah, y'all supposed to already been saved.
Right.
And I said, man. But he did this thing. He said, I want everybody to stand up. We're standing up and close your eyes. He said, if God couldn't look down on you and say, this is my son, this is my daughter, in whom I'm well pleased, I want you to raise your hand. So shoot, I raised my hand. But out the corner of my eye, I'm looking at Cynthia because she ain't raising her hand. And I'm saying, no, why ain't you got your hand raised? We stand together.
Oh, right.
Okay. All right. But I let her go. And he said, okay, I want you to come down here to the front of the altar. And my foot wouldn't move. My feet wouldn't move. I said, go on. And then he did something I never heard nobody do. He started binding up the devil. And he literally said, Satan, I command you to loose those feet. And when he said that, my foot moved.
Oh, wow.
And I said, man, so I go down the steps. And so many people came. I'm at the end of an aisle. And when he prayed, something came over me that I couldn't, because I was saying, I know what it feels like to be high. I don't know what. I said, I don't know what this is that's going on. So we was going home in the car, and Cynthia was kind of quiet because she knew something was going on, but she didn't know. And so we pulled up in front of the apartment. And I told Cynthia, I said, you know what? I said, I don't know what's going on with me. I said, but the next time I sleep with a woman, I said, she'll be my wife.
Oh, wow.
And I moved out. And then I told
you
her,
moved out of her?
I moved out of her apartment.
Oh, okay.
With a male friend of mine.
Okay.
And I told her, I said, you know, I said, Demond said something about some Holy Ghost. I said, I think I need some of that Holy Ghost stuff, you know. And a friend of ours said, well, you know, Pastor Dollar, because I used to listen to him on the radio and make fun of him because I thought he was cocky. Okay. She said, you listen to him, you know, everybody. So we go over there, and there's only about 15 people. And I sit down in the front seat. They had praise and worship for an hour. And I sit down in the front seat in a 3-piece suit, cross my legs. I said, this don't even make no sense. I didn't know he was on the piano. And Pastor Poe was doing the worship. So after that, Pastor Dollar got up on the piano, came over and stood right in front of me. And he said, you know, we'll be doing worship and praise, and we're honoring the Lord and so on and so forth. He said, you know, some people got the nerve to come in here and sit down and cross their legs. And he said, you know, I will call them out, don't you? I'm saying to myself, dude, y'all settle down.
Right. This is the guy you was mocking before.
Yeah. But then everything was cool, and we told him me and Cynthia was living together. We asked him to marry us, and then by the end of the month, 3 weeks later, he married us in our basement.
Oh, wow.
In 1986. So however long the church is, that's our anniversary. That's how long we've been married.
Oh, wow.
But something started happening with me. Oh, I know what it was. I wanted my children. I wanted all my children with me because I was seeing something different. And I said, man, I would just like to have my kids here. You know what? It seemed like I'm thinking right. Things that I used to would automatically do without thinking, I wasn't doing it. But I never made a decision not to do it.
Right.
And so I started tripping off myself, you know, which really is my mind's getting renewed, but I don't know all about that.
Right.
But I wanted my children to be there with me. So Cynthia got 2 kids. She's 24 years old. And I tell her that I want 1, 2, 3, my other 4 kids to come stay with us in a 3-bedroom apartment.
Wow. What did she say?
Yeah. You know what? She was young. She didn't say. She was really for it.
Okay.
But I didn't know what was coming.
You said you didn't know what was coming.
No, because one of the things that happens when a man leaves his children, you don't know the things they go through. You don't. And you don't. You just. I mean, you're dad, but they ain't been around you.
Right.
And they don't know that.
Right.
They go through things individually, you know, with stepfathers, you know, boyfriends, just friends, things that they go through.
Right.
And I really couldn't relate to that. And because of the way that I grew up, you know, I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know what to look for. You know, so
right.
as I was getting in church and coming up, I was learning, you know, how to be responsible. And I was doing responsible things, but I didn't have the tools as a man and a father to relate to my children, to be able to recognize things that they were going through.
Right.
As they were, because I never really had that example.
That's good. Wow.
Of a husband and wife and what it's supposed to be. One time, one of my daughters, we were successful in network marketing, me and Cynthia. And I'd be on the phone. And my kids knew that when you come in that door, if I'm on the phone, I put my hands up, you turn around and go back out the door, and we'll talk about it later. So one time my daughter comes in, put my hand up, and she keeps coming. And I'm talking on the phone, and she starts writing on my desk. And I put my hand over the phone. I said, what are you doing? She says, I just made an appointment with you because it's the only way I'm going to get a chance to talk to you. Turned around, walked out, and shut the door.
What?
And I said, wow. And then a few years later, her younger sister, now we're in Jacksonville, and we'd moved to Jacksonville, and she comes in my office, and she's just 15 or 16. And she comes in, sits on my lap, puts her arm around my neck, she looks at me, she said, Dad, I said, what's my favorite color? I took a shot at it. She said, what's my favorite car? I took a shot at it. She said, what's my favorite movie? I took a shot at it. She said, who's my best friend? I took a shot at it. She asked me about 8 questions, and I butchered it up. She looked at me, kissed me on the top of my head, and said, Dad, maybe you need to take some time to get to know your daughter. I got up, walked out, and shut the door. But it's in Jacksonville where I got my first glimpse of what family is supposed to be and how a man's supposed to relate to his children. Now, all my children are grown but one. So how do I go back and salvage that? And that's when that kind of leads up to the video with Cage.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Wow. So what was you and Cage's relationship like? What was that like, and how did that get to the point where it was?
On the video, one time, Cage is 44 now.
Okay.
When we did the video, he was 41. Right. So I remember it had to be about 4 years, 3 to 4 years before we did that video. Me and him were sitting on the back of his truck. And I told him, I said, Cage, I said, you may not notice, but me and your mom broke up when you was 5 years old and Doc was 3. And he says to me, at this time he's in his maybe 37, 36, something like that. He says to me, he said, oh, I know, I remember. He said, I remember the day. I said, you do? At 5? And he said, yeah, I remember the day. He said, Mom called me and my brother downstairs, set us at a table. She was crying profusely and told us that their dad's not coming back, has left and he's not coming back. And looked at him, at Cage, and said, Cage, I need you to step up and be the man of the house and help me with your little brother. Can you do that? And he said, with tears in my eyes, he said, Mom, I can do that.
Wow.
So what he did is that him growing up, he saw him and his brother and his mother struggle financially, doing without things, getting low on food, so on and so forth, while I'm doing good over here with my other family and helping take care of other people's children. Mm. And so it built up a resentment for him, seeing his mom come home tired and sitting on the side of the bed in tears because she had to get up and do it again. Mm. And his brother told me that when he was about 16, 17, he said if you wanted to make him mad, call him David, because his name is David Elliott Cage.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, call him David. So I used to call him for, sometimes it would be 4 or 5 months before he even take a call. Mm. Yeah, so that one was a tough one. But when he came to Jacksonville, ended up, it was a situation where he just needed to come, the only place he could have went. It gave us a chance, to mend some things. But by that time, not only I had been there 10 years already, that I started to see role models of what men are really supposed to be. I'm teaching men how to do that. And so
now you've gotten to the point now, at this point in your life, where you're actually teaching men on how to be responsible people.
Yeah.
With all of your background.
Yeah.
How did your children respond to that?
At first, laughing.
Mm.
It's just like when Cage says on the video, when he first came to Jacksonville, we had the men's morning group. Mm-hmm. And all the men sometimes be 20, 30, sometimes 50. And when he came there and he saw these men looking up to me and saw me ministering to them about how to be a father, he said, at first, he found that real interesting. But I had started working on a relationship with me and him, because I just started to see through when I look back over my life, I saw so many things that I did wrong. I saw so many things that my children missed out on, although at the same time, I never said it to my children, but it's a miracle that I'm even here for them to even know. Mm. Because back in Ohio, the life that I was living before I moved to Atlanta, if someone would have came to my mother and said, Miss Mamie, we just found David, in a ditch. Somebody shot him in the back of the head. It would have crushed her, but she wouldn't have been surprised.
Wow.
Because it wouldn't have mattered if it was going to happen. It was when. So it was a miracle that I'm even still there.
Wow.
To do that. But I just wanted to be what I never had. And I just want to keep learning how to do it. And God just gives me, and it's not me, it's a gift that God has given me, for men and how to articulate and minister, to them. But with my children, I've had every one of my children. When your children are grown, they will tell you what they think about how you raised them and how you were there for them when they were kids. Most of it ain't good.
Mm.
Most of it ain't good. And I've had every single one of my children tell me what they thought about me and how I was with them when they was coming up. And wasn't none of it good.
That's the thing I want to unpack, because you do this so well. I remember doing the video and watching you. Cage was so descriptive on how he felt. He was able to articulate how he felt.
Yeah.
It was hard to hear, never on this side, but to watch you take it in and not take it personal.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that? How are you able to process that and not down yourself, think you're not good enough, or how do you do that?
Well, I tell you, actually, I learned this from that interview with Cage. Okay, is that, and I've actually shared it with many other couples since the video.
Okay,
is that when your child, because a lot of times you're separated from your children, things happen. Sometimes the mother that's not there. It's not always the dad, that leaves, and so on and so forth. It takes a child 2 to 3 years to basically get used to a form of family that they've never seen before. Which means I've been with my mom and dad as long as I can remember. That's all I remember. Now you want me to get used to somebody else? Oh, you want me to get used to my dad being with somebody else? Or my mom being with somebody else? What it is that when your kids tell you what they went through and how they feel about how you were there for them, or you weren't there, maybe you were gone for years, it's not a time for you to tell them, you don't understand what I was going through. You don't understand where I was in my life. That doesn't mean crap. It's a time for you to shut your mouth and listen to the child tell you what they went through, because that is their truth. And what they went through, they were only children. And so the answer that a person, the response that a person is looking for is, I'm so sorry. I did not know. And would you forgive me? It's not about you.
All right.
It's to do that. And then once the child knows that all they want to do is know that you heard it.
All right.
That you heard them.
All right.
Don't come back with something else. And that's what I try to do with each one of them. Now I got kids that don't even want to hear me talk like that, because it's they tell me I'm not the same person. They say you're an incredible dad.
Wow.
Now, I still got a long way to go, buddy. Okay. All right. I'm still got a long that I'm still working on.
We all are.
Yeah. But it's amazing the relationship that I have with my kids now that I still need to work on.
I remember in the video, I keep referring back to the video. When you get a chance, please take a look. I'll send a link in the description of this to the video. But I remember how descriptive he was and how he shared how hard it was for him. But I'll never forget him saying how you changed and how you were the first person on the scene when they needed you.
Yeah, now.
And I want you to tell the audience or tell me what message that sends to people who are in a situation where they have not been with their kids for a while. They want a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
What's the message, or what's the journey, or what should they expect to do? Or
basically, no matter what has happened, you want to start now. Just start now and start being there for them. You know, when you see, I told a gentleman, I told several men, I said, what you want to do when you go around your kids, assess their environment. Look for little things that you see that they're doing without. Some things that they need, you know, and just get it for them. I said, if one of them, you know, our kids, they would say, maybe contact us while we're in Jacksonville and say, hey, I need about $180, you know, to pay this electric bill. We said, okay, all right, we'll do it. And but we sent them $400. And why would we send them $400? They asked for $180, because if they didn't have anything in the beginning, after they paid the electric bill, they still ain't got no money.
Right.
You know, so we give them that. They notice little stuff like that. You know, we do extra. Now they do, because we don't loan money. You know, if we can't give it to you, we don't loan it to you, because whatever you need it for, we're not going to take that person's place.
Right.
You know, and now you're looking forward that you got to do it. No, it's a blessing.
Right.
Nowadays, our kids do the same thing with us, because they paid attention to those little things. Just trying to be there and see what it is that they need.
How old were you when you started having a relationship with your children, like impactful relationship, like you started making?
60.
Wait a minute. From that video, he had you were 60 years old when you started having a relationship with your children?
No, when I started now. When I started, where I'd had time to see some examples of what it's supposed to be like as a man, as a father, as a husband, you know, and all of that. Yeah, about close to 60.
Elder David, so that means it's possible.
Absolutely.
I mean,
and your children, you have to understand that no matter what the relationships with the children are growing up, it's what they want.
It's what they want.
It's what they
Ultimately,
want.
It's what they want.
You better believe it. It's what they want.
And I'm not going to tell, because I know you're old as Moses, but I won't tell your age right now.
Mm-hmm. That's all right.
I won't tell your age.
Right.
But
I'll just pull the cord. Okay.
But seriously, you just eliminated an excuse that it's too late.
Oh yeah.
You know, your children are, you know, you said one of them's 40, he's 46,
44.
44?
Mm-hmm.
He's 44 years old. You eliminated the excuse that it's too late to start having a relationship with your children.
Absolutely. I see men that I've counseled that are in their 60s that still tear up at the thought of spending some time with their dad, or wish they had known him. Because they're always, especially for girls, you know, they're always going to be that. Why? I mean, you're just not their dad. You're their kid's grandfather.
Right.
You know, it's something that they want, especially if you come right. You can't come entitled. And also, one of the things that we have to understand as parents is that what the person who determines if we're going to have a relationship or not, and how good that relationship is going to be, is the child, not the parent.
Ooh, you just stepped on a lot of toes.
Yeah, not the parent. It's the child that's going to determine that right there.
That is so huge.
Yeah. They're the one that was shortchanged. It doesn't matter if you was in jail to that child. It doesn't matter, you know, that you was sick or you was doing this, or, you know, you was immature and all that. Doesn't mean a crap to those kids. Bottom line, you wasn't there for me.
Wow.
When I needed you. Multiple times. You have no idea. When I think some of the things that my kids went through just because I wasn't there and I didn't marry their mother and I didn't stay with their mother, the struggles and things that they went through with that, was me. And even though I was ignorant, to a lot of things, I just didn't know. I innocently didn't know what I didn't know. And I was living my life, like I was in a bubble or something, doing what I wanted to do, with who I wanted to do, where I wanted to do it. Not knowing that you got children over here that need you, that are having life-altering experiences because you're not there.
So what do you say to somebody who says, well, I'm ignorant of it, I don't know? What did you do to change that perspective? Like, I didn't know, I didn't know what to do, but how did you change that? Because I know in that conversation, Cage was like, I remember him saying you were consistent.
Mm-hmm.
You were always there. So there was a time where he didn't want you to be there and you were still there.
Mm-hmm.
Until it changed, and then he really wanted you to be there. But how did that change? What did you do to change that perspective for yourself and not use that excuse, I didn't know?
When I came up in a strict household. If my mom told you, don't get off that sofa, there were no 3 strikes. You may get 2. And so that was me. That's the way I came up. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, I didn't connect with my children emotionally, and I'm still trying to do that to this day. But one of the biggest things, because my kids are so smart, that I can say something that I think is real relevant and like, this makes sense. They'll take it 3 levels deeper. It's like, but you didn't take into account, this is what I was saying. Mm-hmm. And when you answered that made me feel this way. And just like an example, this past weekend, I flew up to Pittsburgh to be with one of my sons, and we drove to Cleveland, to a game. Now, Cleveland is only 35 minutes from where I grew up. So you would think that if I'm that close, that why wouldn't I run over and see my brother? You still got 2 kids over there. You got your sister, you got your brothers, you got family. You're 25 minutes, 30 minutes away.
Right.
All right. But I was talking to my son before we went to Cleveland. And we was, and even my wife, Cynthia, said, David, it makes sense if you just want to stay a couple of days. I couldn't, because I had a Sunday event. And I listened to my son was talking, and he said, because he asked me a strange thing. He said, what are you going to do, run by somebody's house for a couple of minutes here, a couple of minutes there? I said, maybe 30 minutes, maybe to an hour here, that, and so on and so forth. And I heard him say to somebody, is that I'm going to my first basketball game with my father. And I really don't want to share those minutes and those hours with anybody. And I heard that, and I said, I did a U-turn, just like that. I said, oh, that's out. I said, let me focus on what I'm doing right now. Because I remember we were in Jacksonville, and we went to, sometimes it's just fathers we sold. Oh, God, brother, we need help, okay? On the emotional side of the brain. See, a woman can work on both sides. All right, we go over to that emotional side, we start getting withdrawals. Okay?
Yeah.
But anyway, I remember, because I remember in Jacksonville that we went to a football game, to the Jags. It's not even embarrassing to say Jaguars now.
Okay? Right.
Yeah, but went to a football game with the Jags and a friend of his. And I'm sitting up there next to him, and I'm looking and I'm saying, oh, man. I said, man, I'd like to see it on TV, because you can get the replay and you can get this and that, and you get close. And I'm sitting up there talking like this, right? And he's just quiet. And then the Lord quickens my spirit later on and says, this is your son's in his 30s. And it's the first football game he's ever been able to go to with his father. And his father is complaining about how he likes it, see it better on TV. And just blew it. Blew the moment. Blew the moment. But see, and what happens that your kids won't say that to you.
Right.
You know?
Right.
They're just, tune out. Say, this dude don't even get it. It ain't even that important. So when I heard that, I said, oh, this ain't happening again. Yeah. This is not happening again. And he also paid $1,000 to play for golf clubs. Because he thought he was going to get a chance to play with me more often because I played every week. And I missed that, seeing him do that for that. So many times with us parents, we miss these little clues that our kids give us because we're just thinking about us. And we're just thinking about what we would do. When your kids come to you and they want to talk to you about something about them, it is not time for you to start bringing up you and what you would have did and what you did. You shut your mouth and listen to the child. And I still got a way to go there. Because I can tell sometime I miss it and my children start backing up. Because I'm that way. I'll back up out of a conversation if it need to. If I see you don't get it.
When we started this conversation, I asked you about your qualification for doing.
Mm-hmm.
If I can pretty much guarantee when people listen to this, they will run to your website because you have demonstrated evidence of your ability to turn a situation around. And I am blessed. I heard some stuff, and I'm sure people listening to this or watching this are going to say, let me go adjust what I just did with my kids. I need to go listen, and I think that is so, so powerful. How can they connect with you? How can people connect with you?
Well, they'll be able to go to agoodandfamilyaffair.com.
Okay.
And also davidgoodin.com.
Okay.
Yeah, one of those. And it's never too late, man, for the kids. So many kids are waiting with open arms and open hearts, just wanting you to make the effort. But when you tell your kids, say, look, I can't do nothing else about that. That's the past. That's the past. Can we go forward or can we not? What's the deal? Some people demonstrate their ignorance when they open their mouth. When you say something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Just because you're just not equipped.
Right.
To do it. But you just got to be humble, and you got to ask your kids, what do I need to do? There's got to be some remorse. You know what you done missed out on. You missed out on how many of your grandkids' birthdays,
right,
Christmases, all that kind of stuff. While your children are sitting around other people, they got their dads. We got who was it? We had a grandson that was in middle school, and he told a couple of his buddies in school. He said, "Man, I got to go. Oh, me and my parents, are going here, later on this evening." And one of the kids said, "You got both your parents at home?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "They said, how did you do that?"
Wow.
That's the way the school system is now.
Wow.
So how did you get both of your parents to be in the same house? Because they don't have it like that. And what that comes from is we as men have no idea that anytime we father a child and we just father and just leave it, we have no idea how many generations are affected by that because of what we don't know. It's more than that. And I was talking to a gentleman, a young guy one time, and boy, he just knew it all. He had all the answers. But he was asking me for some advice. And I told him, I said, I said, I'm gonna tell you this right here. I said, I can say this to you because you know me and you know how I talk. I said, you got some changes you want to make? I said, because right now, the worst thing that can happen to a young lady is that she has a child by you.
Wow.
It would be the worst thing that ever happened to her.
Wow.
To do that.
That's sobering.
Yeah. But we just got to do better. They're more than children. You know, I got 2 kids over here, got 2 kids over there. You know, it's more to it than that. See, the thing about moms is that moms don't have the choice of I'm not going to work this week. I'm not paying the bill this week. They don't have those choices. And see, one of the things, and I'll just stick this in, because you and I have talked about this, is that one of the things that have happened, and this is where we really have to really come up to date in our churches, is that one of the things that has happened in the last 20 years is that anytime we teach on family from a nuclear setting in churches, as everybody is biologically connected, when that is the farthest thing away from the truth now. Because now, man, and we also teach that if the man get his act together, everybody else in the house will fall in the line if he just gets straight.
Right.
But what we don't realize is that man is no longer the head of the household.
Right.
The majority of the head of the household in this country is women. It's women that are doing it. But we keep talking to the man and telling him his responsibilities, but we're not talking to the women. So what happens, you know, they come to church and they hear that same old thing. And the wife is in the amen corner. But the man is sitting down and saying to himself, who's going to talk to that sharp mouth, controlling attitude woman that I have to deal with all the time? Who's going to deal with her? Who's doing it? And so they leave discouraged, you know, doing that. But the wife leaves empowered. They're shouting all over the place.
Right.
But it's a different time. And another thing is that in most churches, 70% of the congregation are blended families. Not nuclear families. They're blended families. So when you teach from a nuclear, which really we're supposed to teach from God's best.
Right.
Everybody's state, you know, is the parents, everybody's biologically connected and so on and so forth. But it's not what we have.
Right.
You know, to
it's
do
not
that.
The reality
and if
right
we don't adjust to that, then because blended families, what they're going through in their households, you can about 15 minutes through your preaching, you know, or whatever that you're doing, they know if you even have a clue of what's going on in the house.
Wow.
Because see, you're not nuclear families. They're not hearing kids tell you, you ain't my daddy, you ain't my mom. You know, matter of fact, I don't even want to live with you. I want to go live with my mom. I want to go live with my dad. You know, all those things. You know,
that's common. That's common, right?
Cuss you out. You know, you don't like it, send me home to my dad or to my mom. All of that, all those different things you got to go through. But that's 70% of a congregation. So they can tell, but we just got to come up, because that's in the counseling that Cynthia and I do with a good family affair. We got 32 questions that we ask couples before we get started on the session. Because what happens is that when people get married, they marry each other's present, not understanding how much their past is going to play in their marriage going forward.
Wow. Boy, I tell you, I always have a good time talking with you.
Man, you the one always provoking folks. Shoot.
Well, I want to first of all, I want to say thank you again for for coming. I mean, you did way more. You unpacked way more than I was expecting, but you always do that. That's what you do. That's
Anyway.
what you do.
Okay.
But I definitely want to have you come back and we talk more because you have more stories to share. But if you have one thing that you could share with, you've talked to different perspectives. You talked about men, you talked about women, and their different perspectives. But if someone was interested or needed help, what's the one thing that you would suggest, as it relates to blended families? What's the one thing you would suggest? I know there's lots of things, but how could you leave this conversation with a thought?
I would say, God is good, bro. I am telling you, not only is he good, but he's real. And and God has done so many things in my life to prove that to me, even this day. It's never too late to improve yourself. The older I get, the more I learn that I don't know. And every day examine yourself. Tell the truth tell the truth to yourself about you. And where you are and where you really are. What are your shortcomings? What are your strengths? If you don't know, find you a mentor. Find you somebody that you look up to. Somebody said, we're not responsible, for, the trauma that we've gone through in our past. But we're 100% responsible for fixing it. So there's some things that we can do. It's never too late for anything.
Right.
If you love people, you love your children, you love your family, do something about it. Start showing them that you do, even in a small way. Don't go overboard too quick because they'll think something wrong with you.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, but just start doing little things without somebody having to ask you about it. It's a beautiful thing to do anything good for anybody. For anybody, just to see a smile, to where you was able to be a blessing to somebody, whether it was advice or sins, especially with your family.
Right. Right.
The best thing to do is help them.
Right.
Do some little things that for them that you see need to be done, and they didn't ask you. What it does, it just melts the heart. And they pay attention to those little things, because they think that they know your hard-headed self, and cold-hearted, not paying attention and all that. But they notice so it's easy for them to see when you're out of character, but it's in a good way.
Right.
But you do it intentionally. That's all.
Wow. Well, how can they? Number one, how can they get the book? Where can they go to get your book?
DavidEGoodin.com.
Okay, DavidEGoodin.com to get your book. And the name of the book again?
Wisdom from the Father You May Have Never Had.
Okay.
And there's the other one. It's called Well, That Didn't Work.
Okay.
All right.
Which
my daughter designed the covers, on them, Michelle, and especially the title on Well, That Didn't Work.
Right.
Because how many times we do that? And it's basically just wisdom, thoughts, different scenarios that you go through. And I give you one that's in there. It's a lot of people don't understand if you got a good man or you got a good woman, and this is in the books. You brag about how good she takes care of you and how good a woman that she is and the things that she does for you, without realizing all she's doing is giving you an example of how she herself wants to be treated. That's what they do. So if you got a good man or you got a good woman, you have to know all they're doing is trying to show you how they want to be treated.
Wow.
And you have to examine yourself and ask yourself, am I giving that back?
This is in the book.
It's in the book.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay. If somebody wanted to set up a counseling session with the Goodin Family Affair, how do they do that?
they're going to be able to go to agoodinfamilyaffair.com.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Elder David, thank you so much for letting us unpack your story so others can embrace it. I'm honored, as always, to be with you. And if you all have comments or suggestions or thoughts, please go down there on the link. Make sure you subscribe. But go down there to the link, subscribe, check out some of our merchandise. Purchase some of the You Are Amazing merchandise. But make sure you check out the Goodin Family Affair. And David Goodin, he's doing so many good things for men, women, and children. Do you have anything else you want to share before we go?
To me, this is just another time where you just getting in all my business.
That's always what I do.
Okay.
Thank you. Let me get your business.
Man. I love it.
Yes, this is good. Until next time, I'm out.